Welcome back to the Diamond Mine podcast with Nate and Laney, where we listen to all 92 Diamond albums certified by Billboard. Today's album is
Mellon, Collie and the Infinite Sadness by the Smashing Pumpkins.
But before we get into that, let's talk about our social medias. The Twitter, TDM Pod, TDM POD. The Instagram is the Diamond Mine Podcast. YouTube, if you look up the Diamond Mine, we should be the first thing that pops up. But we have a TikTok, right?
Yeah.
What is it?
I think it's just Diamond Mine Podcast.
Okay, Diamond Mine Podcast on TikTok. Check us out. And before we get into the album as well, we should probably talk about the obvious here, the elephant in the room, the dogs playing poker in the room, the weird guy in the chariot in the room. Clearly, we are remote now. And also, clearly, we have not done this podcast in a really long time. Dude, I'm going to burp. Hold up. Okay. So, what has changed in our lives since then? I went to college, so I moved.
I graduated college.
Yeah. So I live like 2 hours away from Laney now. And so the podcast just kind of came impossible.
Yeah. We didn't have time. It was
we've already gone so far into this list of Diamond albums that it was kind of at the point where it was like, well, we still need to do this. Like, we've already listened to so many, and we've listened to like the bad ones. We need to at least like get to the good ones, you know? And so we decided, hey, let's bring it back this way. This can be a little bit more manageable, a little bit more lax, just a lot less structured. And I'll let Laney talk about like structurally what's different going on here.
Yeah. So, and also this transition will be way easier for season 2, especially when Nate does go back to school. So, you know, but as of right now, we've cut a lot of things down. And instead of going like song by song like we did and our episodes being extremely long, we're really just going to hit like the high points and maybe some of the low points, and just things that really stood out to us and what we obviously liked and disliked, and keynotes, I guess, key takeaways from the albums. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Things will be a lot more conversational, hopefully, just feel a lot more natural. And hopefully we can take quite a large chunk of time off of the podcast, because some of those podcasts were like
they were
an
hefty.
hour, like, and the recording sessions, like before editing it all down, I'd have like 3 hours of just like footage of just us. Yeah, it was insane. But anyways, I mean,
can't remember now.
I mean, maybe it'll come back, you know.
I don't know. Yeah.
Lay down the facts on this album, Laney. Let us know.
All right. Oh, that's what I was going to say about this album. We've already listened to it. We listened to it and recorded it a year ago, but it was never edited or whatever. So, I mean, if y'all want a special episode, let us know. But it was never went through our process or whatever, obviously never uploaded. So we sat down and re-listened to it again. And now we're recording it again. So that's a fun one. But yeah, getting into it. So this album went 10 times platinum. It is 28 songs long, and it was split into 2 discs. It is 2 hours and 2 minutes. It was released on October 24th, 1995. And then I have the little Wikipedia page here. Oh, you can't even see that. But so Mellon, Collie and the Infinite Sadness is the 3rd studio album by American alternative rock band, the Smashing Pumpkins. It was released on October 24th in the UK, but then it was actually a day later here in the US. And it was produced by frontman Billy Corgan with Flood and Alan Moulder. Yeah, and it just features a wide array of musical styles. which if you listen to it, you will definitely get that. So yeah, I guess we can jump
Yeah,
on into it.
I mean, the album itself, I guess I'll speak of it in general terms before we start getting a little bit
Yeah.
nitpicky. Um, the wide variety of music is one of the main things that I took away from this. I mean, there's 28 songs. It's it's a double album, but it's ridiculously long. Um, and there is quite a variety of sounds. There's the ripping, distorted instrumentation, the kind of 90s thing that you're gonna expect out of an alternative rock band from that time period. But there's also like a lot of softer, more melancholy moments that the band really takes advantage of, and that's one of my more positive takeaways from the album.
The
With
diversity.
that being said, yes, the diversity of it. Um, with that being said, while it is diverse, I don't know if it's 28 songs worthy diverse, you
Yeah,
know? So,
I agree with that.
what do you think about this, Lainey?
Um, the first takeaway is that the very first song on this track is instrumental. It's the namesake of the album. And I'm thinking it's to set the tone. But to be honest, can you really set the tone for this? I don't even know this album. Can you really? Because there was a lot going on. And I will
There
say
was a lot.
at first, we really enjoyed the diversity of this album, I think, for the most part, not entirely. But then coming back a second time, it was like, wow, kind of what Nate said. Did we
Hmm.
really have to do that? Um, Also, I do have a note. Should we tell the yellow paper towel story or
Oh yeah, we sure can. We sit down. Lainey comes over to my house. I'm on summer break right now. And so Lainey came over, and I was like, let's listen to this together because that's just what we do when we record those podcasts. And so we go and sit down in our little chairs. I sit in this recliner that we've had in our family since like the 80s. Um, and I kick back my lazy boy. Laney's chilling on a beanbag or something. And I look down to my right into like the crevice of this lazy boy. And it's just like 15 yellowed, like 1990. Probably these paper towels are older
yeah.
than this album. They're yellowed, and inside of them is the wrapper to a cheese stick. And I don't know
You
any
started
information about this other
no.
than that it was there.
You started freaking out. You're like, oh, there's yellow paper towel. What is that? What is that? Lenny, get it? Like it, I, just, I did end up picking it up though.
Yeah,
So that was a decision I made. And
yeah,
then there
that
was
was
more
truly disgusting.
that fell
Yes.
out the bottom. Yeah, it was just it was yeah, yeah, no
Yeah,
comment. I'm done
those
with
were like
that.
borderline fossilized. Like they had been there for a minute.
Ancient. Someone
They
was
were
eating
older
that.
than me and Lainey.
Someone was snacking up
Uh-huh.
and left their greasy paper towels in the.
God, that's so gross, dude. I had like forgot about that until just now.
I'm glad I
Wow.
could
Oh
remind
man.
you.
Oh, you know how like when you're traumatized, like it'll like your mind will just like blank
It
it
just
out and
snaps
like
back.
erase it.
Oh
That's where
yeah.
it was. It was gone.
Yeah. I love a good trigger. Speaking of being triggered, this album was a sensory overload.
Oh, indeed. Um,
Love a good
the
transition.
the just pure like distorted angst was
Yeah.
overbearing at times. If you can, I know Laney's notes are quite a bit more like song regimented, and mine are just kind of like word vomit. So if you can, there was that one song that was just like beyond painful to listen to. Do you know
Uh,
if you have that like written down? It was so distorted that like I wanted to like flip inside out. It was one of those.
I don't know if I don't know if I have that. Man,
I mean, I can just chat while you search or
I don't
whatever.
know. It's in my old notes. Hold on. I know where it is.
This album is just so aggressive though that it's difficult to sit and consume this music for such an extended period of time. I can understand like maybe listening to a couple songs off of this album, but as a large collective of music, especially since it's a double album and there's just so much that you're consuming, um, there's a certain point where the aggressiveness and the distortion is just too much. And really, like Laney said, as a sensory overload. And I just had to like take a break and like step back after this album and like sit in a quiet room for a little bit because it was painful. It was painful.
I would also like to add that we ended up skipping several songs this go around because it was just
Mhm.
almost to the point where it was unbearable. Like it was torture. It was just way too much for us to handle in the moment. Again, for a second time, sitting there for 2 hours. Like, come on. Um, oh my gosh. Dude, I don't know because I know it was towards the end of the album.
Hmm. It's honestly, if you've listened to this album, you probably know what song we're talking about. It goes into a guitar solo that is it's not just distorted. Like it sounds like it's playing through like a clapped out 1990s Honda Civic speakers, and it's like I don't even know how to describe it. I remember when we first listened to this like a year ago, I thought that your computer had broke. Like I
Mhm.
thought that the speakers on your computer were messed up, but no, that's just how the song sounds. Um, and this album just has not to that degree. That song was intense, but this album has a lot of moments like that where it's just like, oh my gosh, like this is a lot going on right now.
Yeah, it's a lot of
Um,
overload for sure. I can't find
yeah,
the song.
I'd say this. That's okay. Um, there's a lot of. I'm sorry if you can hear those dogs. There's a lot of
The
angst
ones
in this
playing poker?
album. Oh yeah, facts. Uh, they're arguing about Fido is see him, he's peeking. He is definitely peeking at his cards, bro. Oh my gosh. That is crazy. He is literally cheating. Um Dang, he's smoking a big old fat cigar. Anyways, so with negatives for this album, it's just a bit too indulgent, a bit too much just content in and of itself. Um
100%.
and on the aggressive side of things, which is okay in doses, but not in 2 hour doses. Uh, I would like
Yeah.
I would like to speak on unless you have anything else that you'd like to wrap up the
For the
negatives with.
negatives, for
Yeah.
sure. This album, in not in its entirety, but I would say in at least, I'm going to say majority, is headache inducing, almost vomit inducing. Like made me want to retch. It had that gag effect to it, and not in a good way, you know?
Hmm.
So it was just too much. Like headphone users, I don't know how they wouldn't just like lose their minds listening to that, to be completely
Hmm.
honest with you.
Yep,
But
I agree.
yeah, just a lot to take in. Unless you're really advanced with that musical knowledge and that you have that very specific taste. Like this album, I wrote this down. So like during that time, that heavier sound was popular because like, the grunge and the punk and everything like that was coming into the scene. But I feel like this album just didn't carry as well as all of those other albums. Like
Hmm. Didn't age properly.
not no, not as well. Like I don't know who your target audience was. Um, and I hope they still listen to you, but at the same time, it's like, holy crap, you know?
Hmm.
Like
Sorry, that's
picking up the
yeah.
cards. Yeah, no. But yeah, we can move on to the positives if there are any.
Um, yeah, there's definitely positives to this album. I was gonna say before I got into them, um, leading off with the negatives and talking about it so negatively. kind of makes it sound like, oh, this is a terrible album. But there are shining moments in this album that I really enjoyed. There were songs that after even the first listen, I had on my playlist for a while.
Same.
So I wanted to speak on a lot of the actual like melancholy, softer. Dang, bro, I am gonna burp again. A lot of the softer, more melancholy moments I can appreciate a lot more than the super hard, aggressive stuff going on. I feel like I can more consume what they're actually trying to do musically when it's more soft and dialed back, and I can really appreciate what they're doing, and that makes me realize like these guys are actually really good musicians. Um, James Corgan, is that his
Billy.
Billy
James
Billy Corgan?
might be the drummer. No, that's Jimmy Chamberlain. I don't know, bro.
Okay, Corgan. Anyways, uh, has quite the way with words. Dude's a poet. He really just speaks like Shakespeare almost in a way sometimes, and can really get you into the mood that he's trying to set.
Oh yeah.
Big boy vocab, you know. And I mean, speaking more uh, positively on the other musicians in the band, uh, the drummer as well. He's just ripping the whole entire album on the super duper aggressive songs when I was just drowning in sound and I didn't know like how I was going to make it through this song. I would just listen for the drummer and try to appreciate what he's doing because man, he kills it the whole album. So if you'd like to speak on some more positive
Yeah.
things, I can. Yeah.
I agree with you on the drummer. I think he, through that busy soundscape, he was kind of like a brief breath of fresh air. He was like just a slight escape from what, like you said, you were drowning in. Um, so, and they all are really talented, but sometimes the mesh was just wasn't entirely there. I don't know. Something was just slightly off, or it was just too much because they were all going in with full force with what they had.
Hmm.
Um, but then, there were songs like Bullet with Butterfly Wings, like 33, which I had downloaded from the last one. And like I think those are phenomenal songs. I will still listen to those songs. Like no hate against this album. And I also made the note of like the I guess the lows of this album bring out the highs as well as the softness to that, I guess, harshness to it. It's that duality. And
Hmm.
so that complexity and aggression versus, the softer tones and when they had like the harpsichord and things like that, they were nice contrasts, but it was two very extremes. So it was almost
Hmm.
like you're just bouncing back and forth, not fully comprehending what to do. And I think I made this note the first time we listened, like listening to an album of this capacity or magnitude is a difficult thing to really wrap your head around. The first time you listen to it, it's really difficult to, I think, really fully appreciate it. And even the second time, it was kind of like, this is miserable, like this does feel just awful. But then I think if we were to take it piece by piece, it would be
Hmm.
much more admirable and a way easier listen. Which I know albums are supposed to be meant to be listened to, like all the way through or whatever. But piece by piece, not a bad choice. But yeah,
Yeah. Um, I wanted to speak in the positive light too on we touched earlier about or kind of throughout this whole entire thing, we've touched about the range stylistically that they have. I kind of want to take a little bit of a step back and think um, this album was made in the 90s and with the music scene that's going on, you've got like Nirvana and Pearl Jam, and you've got Green Day doing their thing, and you've got like all sorts of I guess the forefathers of this like 90s alternative sound. Um,
yeah,
and Smashing Pumpkins, like I see similarities from Smashing Pumpkins to other bands, but also Smashing Pumpkins really does sound like nothing I've heard. I don't I don't really know. I don't think that you could go and be like, "Oh, I'm a big Smashing Pumpkins fan. I need to find like a new band that makes Smashing Pumpkins esque music." You're not going to find something that's going to fit that niche. You're not going to like just the vast variety of music on this album is really really admirable, even if I don't appreciate a lot of it. There's super duper hard music, there's soft melancholy music, there's an instrumental in there, they delve into some electronic stuff going on in this album, which like especially for the 90s is like pretty crazy. And just like I don't know, to be able to do that and have such a successful album when the path to success in the 90s was clearly paved, like making that harder alternative music like Nirvana or something like that was the way, you know. And a lot of a lot of the most popular songs on this album are their harder songs, and so maybe that's why they made the album so long, to like have these harder songs in there while also throwing in like what they want to make and like still reach success. I don't know. I'm not Billy Corgan. But I just wanted to bring that up, that I really do appreciate, even if I don't enjoy a lot of it, the bravery to do truly what they wanted with this.
Right. And I also kind of have to ask the question, I guess, of, are there other albums like that? Obviously, different albums are going to have different themes, but all bands are going to have that similar sound because that's their creativity, that's their outlet, that's what they know and they produce, right? So I think it would take diving a little bit deeper into their discography to really understand what they were trying to do or doing, or that kind of thing. Also, I think it's funny that you mentioned Pearl Jam and stuff like that, because on their song Jelly Belly, I actually said that I think Eddie Vedder, I think that his voice would have fit better than Billy Corgan's, even though it's Billy Corgan's song. So, yeah, just a
That's
note
an
there.
interesting take.
Yeah. I
Do you
think
have
that's all I have, though.
any other positives about this, or we can just wrap up, give your like brief general synopsis of how you feel about this album, and I can give my brief general synopsis, and we can.
I'm done with my notes, so.
Yeah, I
All right.
mean, well, we this album was a roller coaster for sure. This album, if you're into
Definitely.
this kind of sound, if you're into this harder 90s stuff, this might be for you. This probably tickles a lot of people's fancies, and that's why it's a diamond. Me personally, listening to it all the way through, not for me. Listening to it all the way through a second time, definitely not for me. But I can appreciate what's going on. How do I feel about this album in the grand scheme of it all, though? Like if we were doing like the 1 through 92,
we
like that kind
originally
of thing.
ranked it at 34, and I don't remember if that was out of 92 or if it was out of the 122. Also,
Okay, for me,
yeah,
defo lower than 34. I'm feeling like a hot steamy 60s to
all right, halfway.
There's some bangers in there. Bullet with Butterfly Wings. What's the one that I was literally just singing before we pressed record?
1979, Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's a banger.
Yeah.
That is a banger.
Yeah.
And there are definitely high points in this album that I can appreciate. So I'm not going to dump it all the way to the bottom, but
That's fair. I'm definitely dropping it as well. Also, I looked this up really quick because I wanted to just, I guess, see and make this note. It didn't go diamond until October 2nd, 2012.
wow, interesting.
But that was
So this one's a
also,
slow burn.
yeah, apparently. Which I mean, I feel like a lot of albums that we're going to listen to are,
Hmm.
but maybe, I mean, because it could have gotten like at least halfway there back in the 90s, like we don't know.
Hmm.
And I'm not going to look that up. So if you all want to know, you can look it up. We're on
Do
the
your
internet.
own research.
We're on the
Okay.
internet, so we know you all are too. Okay. Do your research.
Yeah. Facts,
Um,
facts, facts, facts.
60s. Honestly, that's sounding pretty solid, but I'm going to keep them on the cusp. And I'm going to say like 59, 60 right now, right now,
Hmm.
right now. Because they're still, I mean, they still kind of go from like the, oh, that was a mess to like, oh, that's a masterpiece. So like in my head, it's
Yep.
still, it's like a war going on. There's a lot happening, but
There are two wolves inside of my mind.
oh, yeah,
One of them is
yeah.
a furry. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Hey,
I'm sorry. Uh,
all right.
anyways, how did we used to end these?
This has been the Diamond Mine podcast. Or no, I think we went over socials first. And we'll be back
Oh
at you
yeah,
next time
socials
with,
again.
okay.
Oh gosh, what is our find our next thingy? Anyways, social medias and stuff. Uh, TDM Pod. That's us on Twitter, I think. Yeah, TDM Pod. Instagram is the Diamond Mine Podcast. YouTube, if you look up the Diamond Mine, that's us. We do our thing, you know. We make some vlogs sometimes. We do other things, you know. Um, and then TikTok was Diamond Mine Podcast, I think. And we will hopefully just be posting random things on there. At least that's my thought. To just throw content on that thing and see what sticks. Uh, but who knows? Who knows what's to come? You know, maybe we'll take another year hiatus. You know, probably not. Hopefully not.
I mean,
But I mean, it happens. You know, life happens. Anyways, this has been the Diamond Mine Podcast. We'll be coming back at you next time with ACDC's Back in Black.